What do you do when things don't work? When it feels like you've done everything to be aligned, to be energetically present, to do the practical work, and still it's like something is not happening? Well, I just went through a couple of days of that. There was a little more actually before that, but the 2 days were kind of like um, there was so much friction. For everything like I wanted to do felt like an effort, and I'm not quite sure why because I, like I said, like I thought I was connected, organized, aligned, all the things, and yet every little thing seemed to be take energy. So to give you a little bit of context for this, I know I haven't done a video in a couple of months, which was unexpected, but there's a lot I have been doing. And both in my business, a new creative idea, I wanted to get going, a trip to London, where I am now. And I just made the decision that I didn't want to create videos just for the sake of doing them, and I wanted to do them when I was much more available. But tonight, I just wanted to share this because it's something I'm going through. It's very fresh, and I know many of you have probably experienced the same. And I mean, it's just part of life, isn't it? Right? When sometimes things don't work. And so I just want to talk about kind of the things that I tried and what was happening and when the shift occurred, and even like why did the shift occur. So the first part was that I was, if anything, on this particular trip, the part that I had highly intended for was the time in London. um, it's a place I know fairly well, having lived here once and visited several times. And so possibly I had certain expectations because of that. And, that's always a tricky thing when we have expectations, even if, we have all the reason to have them, that can sometimes create some tension, and it can stop us in a way because it might mean that we're operating on kind of old experiences or old rules or old um, thought patterns. So I don't know if that's what happened for me this time, but it's definitely something that I know in general that is important to notice if you are holding on to something too strongly, and letting that go can make all the difference to things just starting to flow again. So I had expectations, but not, I didn't think again I was holding them in a tight way. I had been planning, I've been working, practically in 3D about this. It wasn't just, in my mind. And part of it was that I had had a very clear um, offer that I've had for a long time, and I've put it out in other ways before, and um, it has worked. But this particular offer was specific to London because of the culture here, the history here, some of the the many stories that have come from here, and I had created an intensive, both a 1 day and a 2 day, and the whole scene was very clear. It was like it just kind of it came through very quickly, very easily, very um, aligned, with things that I talk about. I had chosen venues, exact venues that for this particular client who would be a match to this, like it would really work with them and on them, because that's the beauty of working in person with somebody, is that we can go to spaces that are going to cultivate creativity or open a person up or expand them, whatever that particular need is or the desire is, that we can use the environment and the location to amplify the work that happens. And also, it can be like super fun and it can be playful. So this is not work that has to feel heavy, even though it can be incredibly deep and incredibly potent. It doesn't mean that has to be heavy. I love to introduce a sense of play, especially for people who are expanding creatively or are taking their vision to new levels, um, or want to feel like, their higher self really moving through them versus creating ideas or businesses out of mental constructs, right? Oh, this could work. Oh, the market needs this, right? So just based on that, instead of like, okay, this is the energy that's moving through me. And yes, we're going to look at maybe the other things, or I guess often what I find is the ideas that are coming are so already packed with the context in which they will work, which includes the market, which includes the how. And so an intensive is a beautiful time where we can go deep into it, partially just because of the hours spent together. And when I craft the space for something like that, um, there's a lot of energy, intention, and research that goes into that. So I had created this event, really. It's really an immersive event for a person to go through. And I had both a version that was really for somebody who, let's see, what would you call it? Call it moving through their own personal transformation, which could be linked to business, but it could be linked to so much more as well in their world. And then I had a version which was I call the Enterprise Edition, which is really about people who are already in movement on their vision, but they've come to that pivot point where there's something that needs to be dialed up, or perhaps like they're just not feeling that their true vision is coming through and they're somehow maybe compromising it or trying to work around things instead of it flowing. And anyways, these are higher level intensives, right? Not for everyone at all. And the price point matches that, and the places I've chosen match that. And so, yeah, I done a lot of work on this. And even when I created it, it wasn't absolutely essential that it happen on this trip, but I had left space for it to happen. And as I got closer and closer and hadn't yet connected with the right person for it, I don't know whether that in the background was creating again some kind of resistance on my part, or I was holding back. I was doing my best as always, of course, just to be like, kind of light about it, because like I had other things too, right? There's lots of things here. There's no absence of things to do, but it was something that would have been just felt like a perfect fit. And because of how aligned it felt when it wasn't happening, it just, set me back a bit, like just like confused, like, well, what's off, right? Like I really feel that all the elements are ready and available and set. And it was like I kept the door open, kept going along my trip. There were many other things prior to the trip as well. And when it came to the point where it's okay, it hasn't happened, right? It's just now, it's not the time. I just shifted my attention. And here are the things that I began to do to create shifts in the last couple of days. One day was just I think after a day and a half of lots of walking in what ended up being very hot days, which was fabulous because it was beautiful and sunny, but really hot. um, I ended up taking like a 3 hour rest in the middle of the afternoon. I lay down thinking it was going to be 20 minutes just to refresh, and even after 3 hours, part of me could have probably just lay there. So I didn't know the amount of tiredness or exhaustion that I was feeling. And it could have been many things. It could have been the walking, could have been the heat, but it could have been like the week and a half prior to this moment of this time being in London, that where other things were going on. Maybe it all just compounded. I don't know. But I rested, right? Even though my mind was going, look, there's so much to do. Like, you can't rest in the middle of the afternoon. Take advantage of it. Enjoy it. It's a beautiful day. But I had to. I softened my resistance around when things needed to happen. I was supposed to meet friends, and that wasn't happening. It was like their lives were just packed full of stuff and things were happening last minute. So one of them, we just decided, we're not going to visit on this trip, and that's okay. And the other one wasn't able to visit with me for the first few days. So, I really wanted that, because there's something, about seeing people, and just feeling comfortable. It would have been like just felt like kind of like a gateway to my time here. But I had to let go. And, visiting wasn't urgent. It was just something that would have been wonderful. And so with a second friend, we've set another day. And what else did I do? Oh, there was a time where, like when you're in a big city, if you live in one, if you visited one, it can be really easy to say, oh, I'll spend the morning doing this, and I'll spend the afternoon doing that, and then the evening I'll do this third thing. And then when it comes around to it, when the city is big, when there's lots of energy there, sometimes you can only do one thing, even though you've done your best to coordinate or organize. And so I had to let go of that expectation as well. And I began to, kind of minimize the amount of things that I was choosing, and to say, look, let's just enjoy this one area that I'm going to, and relax in it and not be in a hurry about it. And even though I know the city well enough, I know how to get to places, it was just this friction all the time. It was like little things would not work, would not happen. Um, and I went through 2 days of that. And granted, I wasn't reacting in a bad way. I wasn't um, sitting there trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. But I did have these thoughts that started coming into my head, like, oh, why don't things work out? And I can't believe this is happening. And oh, well, forget about the rest of the trip. Clearly, like, it's been written that this is not going to be what I expected. And that kind of negative thinking was also a surprise, because I don't live in this energy all the time. I know people do, people who are stressed. But when you use the kind of approaches that I talk about, and you do that kind of work within yourself, and you take care of yourself, these things don't happen all the time. But when they do, they can be a shock to the system, because you feel like such a contrast to what we've cultivated on the norm, right? Not saying that every day is perfect or every day is just amazing, but just that there can be an ease and a flow that we get used to, along with some of those wonderful manifestations that seem to show up unexpectedly and when we expect them. And so the contrast can feel so much heavier, because there is a density to it. There's a density that higher consciousness doesn't have. And so that's what I started experiencing. And so I know when my mind starts thinking those negative thoughts, these are echoes of the past. And there was something of the past, as I mean, like certain situations that didn't work out in the past. And so though that talk feeds on that, right? And it kind of tries to loop you back into believing, oh, this is the way things always are. So I didn't fight it. I didn't sit there trying to do 10,000 affirmations to change it. But I kept softening. That was the main thing. Just soften and let go. Just soften and let go. Because I realized that it was like almost like the harder I tried to change things, because there was an activity I did, by the way, during the 2 days. It's like, okay, let me do this. Maybe this will connect me more with the work that I want to put out there. And then somebody didn't show up for work that day, and so I couldn't have that thing finished, that task finished. And so again, it was just an example, one over, like everything just felt like it was not working. But today, something shifted. And it shifted in a really gentle way. It's not like suddenly everything, was perfect again. But this morning, I started differently. I think there was an element of having let go of the overall expectation, not like giving up, not that kind of energy, but more of, you know what, it is what it is. I've made efforts, I've prepared, I've done all these things, but it's not working, it's not happening. And so let me just accept what is. Um, and I was able to do that gently, Otherwise, it can feel like giving up. It can feel like, okay, I'm just accepting, as in a heavy, sad acceptance. And instead, it was just, okay, this is what it is. Very practical approach. And, I'm just going to sleep because I'm tired. I'm going to have a full sleep, which I did. And I'm going to get up. And I chose to have a beautiful brunch this morning. Absolutely delicious. It was a French toast. And I said, I'm going to treat myself. And it was even better than I expected. And there was something about the meal and the beautiful hotel and just enjoying and savoring the morning and saying, I can leave whatever time I want. There's no rush. And I had a itinerary planned, certain places I wanted to visit, and somehow they began to work this time. I literally, like, I was taking the tube for parts of it, and so I was able to stop in a couple of key locations. I was able to buy something that I was really looking for and hadn't found before, and ended up having the evening, a beautiful rooftop dinner, overlooking the Thames and the city. And none of this was forced. None of this was, this has to happen. But it was like things went back to normal, right? Like, again, I wasn't planning anything major today. It was just a sequence of activities that I had desired and thought I would enjoy. And that's exactly how it flowed. And then that friend who I was was having trouble coordinating with, she actually suggested the day that I preferred to meet up now. And that was awesome. And then a family member who lives here also called me and has planned another overnight trip, basically wherever I like. And that was fun. That was like, felt like, okay, this can work as well. And so I don't know, like, I'm just, part of me is going like, did the stars align or something, or the stars really off in the last 2 days, right? And the thing is, it's not about trying to solve it, because I know the mind is looking for a cause and effect. What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? It's like it starts judging it instead of going, yeah, there were 2 days. Who knows what that was about? The fact that I began to relax and chill was probably the best solution, instead of trying to force anything and instead of trying to push anything. Um, and then reminding me, like, so while I didn't do 200,000 affirmations, not something I typically do, I did begin to plant seeds in my mind. Things like, okay, the intensive didn't occur this time, but maybe this is in preparation for next time I'm here. Or maybe this has now helped me hone much more clearly the kinds of people that I'm working with. Now, one thing that did happen, by the way, and this was a couple of weeks ago, just prior to the trip, like literally days before. So I had developed that enterprise edition that I told you about, very much for a client who's already at a certain level. And I got a call from a past client who literally wanted a few hours with me prior to my trip. Okay, this person is a vice president in her organization, in the company. She has a big vision that she's been working on, and lots of wonderful pieces have happened. But there's one piece that's just not like clicking, right? It's just not going at the speed or the at the level basically that she knows is available and possible. And so I was able to fit her in right before my trip. But it was interesting that she showed up after I'd created this enterprise edition. After, I really set something for a person at a particular time or of their work or life where a certain pivot was required. And, she called me up. I said, let's get on the phone for just, 20, 30 minutes, fill me in on the context, and then I will set the days. Because within that conversation, I pick up a lots of information, what the person says, what they don't say, and I'm able to then start developing the work for them. And in this case, I came up with 4 specific questions, which I sent to her. I said, take a look at these and we'll discuss them on the day. And when we met her, she happened to be in person. And so when we met, she said, those questions were so pivotal that it literally changed the presentation that I had created a week ago. Like it's already changed to a different level, right? So that's how fast this can work. And especially with somebody who I've worked with for a bit of time, that ability gets amplified because I know how they work. I know what they need. And so we did that and then added some more layers in our time together. So that was fabulous. And that kind of felt like an affirmation of the work I had done, that it kind of somehow brought this into being. And so here I am, uh, happy that I feel different today, not in a place of demanding anything further. This is not the time for that, right? There may be times when we need to get things into order. Maybe there's something that is really urgent, but for me, this was not about urgency. Everything on this particular trip for me is about resonance, is about what is a match, what feels really like a natural fit instead of making things happen. And then the places where, for whatever reason, it isn't, accepting it, right? Like, again, it is what it is. And moving forward anyway, right? Not trying to make some major judgments about myself, about the work, about the world, about other people, not giving up and making a big story about it, but just saying, okay, this was a couple of days, and we can't always have those kind of guarantees for things that we've set our sights on when it comes to timing. We can do our best, but sometimes the universe, often, always, the universe knows things that we don't. And so who knows what is going on in the background. If you follow, for example, Neville Goddard's work, he was very much about, like, when you put it out there, it's happened, right? When you receive it within you, it's happened. But that doesn't mean that you're going to see every step along the way. It may mean that it's happening in the invisible. There may be things happening in the background that you have no idea about right now. And so when we set our mind and awareness to that, it can also allow us to relax. And once we start letting go of tension, the flow can also start to return. And we don't have to know why things are the way they are all the time, right? We just don't. We can say it's not our business. It's not necessary for that matter. And so right before the trip, yes, I had that client show up. I actually had 3 manifestations show up after like I'd gone through these like all these little bumps where I was like actually working quite intensely, and then I would have this time where I just needed to recover, and I was kind of going through this um, to this intensity myself. And in my eyes at the time, I thought, well, I'm maybe the intensity is why is like I'm really preparing for this level of intensive that I put out. And for a city like London, which is a highly dynamic city, can be highly exhausting as well. It has a force of its own. So you can't just come in here la 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 and think that everything's gonna flow. It's almost like you have to move into that energy. And so I think that's part of why I would, have these times where I really needed to have a break, to pause, rest, recoups or new energy, right? And as I said, 3 manifestations came. One was that client. Um, One was somebody I hadn't spoken to for months showing up suddenly and initiating something, which was a surprise, a positive surprise, when I hadn't expected. And the third thing was receiving an unexpected gift, which was perfect right before the trip as well. And yeah, anyways, that all those things happened, I think, within 2 days. So this is when, when we don't judge the timing, we don't judge what's not happening. We can just be in the flow, because then we get to live, right? That's what life is not having to assess everything. The mind loves to analyze, and it loves to measure things, and it loves to say this is good and this is bad. But when you move into the heart, when you move into the body, when you are in the spirit, all of that stuff seems to fall away, so that you can actually be present, you can be embodied, you can be truer to yourself. And I think if I had a lesson from the last couple of days, it wasn't so much about what could I have done differently as an activity or choices, but what kept coming through was the need to move into my heart space and to move into this sensation of being versus doing or thinking. Just being, and being in my heart, choosing things moment to moment that I love, that I desire, that I choose, that I enjoy, that I savor, and being present. And I think, in a way, when I said I had that French toast for breakfast, in a way that was maybe a very clear signal about allowing myself to enjoy something that I wanted. Yes, my mind was like, why are you having that? Like, that's so much sugar, that's so much this or that, maybe you should have something that with more protein. It was doing the conversation. And I decided, no, I'm just going to go with what I actually desire, what I would love. And perhaps that's what turned everything around. I don't know. And again, it's not about cause and effect, but it's about really, as I said, the lesson for me personally was drop into the heart, enjoy and savor the things that I can. And as I said, there's no absence of those things around me, but I had to start choosing them. And perhaps my attention had been too much outside of myself, and I needed to come back to me and what feeds me and what nourishes me, so that when I do give again, when I do extend myself again, it comes from a place where I'm already filled, I'm already nourished, I'm overflowing, in fact. And anything that I give is given purely and happily, and not out of exhaustion, and not out of making anything happen, and not out of forcing. So I hope this has given you some good food for thought, given you some ideas, or given you some courage to keep going if you're experiencing what I've just gone through for it's been, I mean, the couple of days it was just more noticeable, but it was happening for at least about a week and a bit. And again, things like that can happen. It's not the end of the world. Don't make it the end of the world, right? You choose that part. You choose. Drop into your heart, drop into your body, do something physical that makes you refreshed. Choose something you enjoy. Choose something you can savor. And I've got a bit more time here. And I may drop in the description box a link to the days I created in case anybody here, was full of curiosity about that, or lives in London, or would like one day to have an intensive in London. I don't know when the next one will be. Um, I have set aside probably another day this week when that can still happen. But if not, then maybe in a few months or in next year. We shall see, because I have other locations as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear your comments or questions from what I've shared today. And otherwise, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.